It was Thanksgiving back when I was pastoring in Newton, Iowa. And I began to watch my 3 grandsons play while we're all getting ready for Thanksgiving. And it's interesting to watch 3 boys play. They're all brothers. So you got the oldest one, Hunter. He's pretty particular. He's one of those kids that actually wipes his shoes off and takes care of everything, and he's kind of in charge. Then we've got Braden, which Braden's kind of all over the place. Completely opposite personality. And then you have Peyton, which just came along later, and, well, he's looking to make a mark in their life, and he's doing a pretty good job making the mark. Mostly on his other brother. Like I said, Hunter's the oldest. Hunter likes to be in control, and usually he's in charge. No matter what they're doing, he's bossy. He knows how things should be, and it's always right in Hunter's mind. You guys know anybody like that? Now, we're watching them play. They go off, and next thing you know, they get into all my boxes from moving, and they start putting boxes together, and they get all the boxes grouped up, and they all get in the boxes. I thought, well, this is interesting. They decide they're going on a vacation. Mind you, this is several years ago. They're small. They're going on a vacation. Guess who's driving? Hunter. Hunter is in charge. So they go down the road, and they're driving, and he stops, and he says, maybe we ought to get some things. Why don't you guys go get what you want to bring on vacation? Next thing you know, all the kids go poof, and they all run to different parts of the house, and they all come back with something, and they all get back in their box. Hunter's still driving. So as they drive down the road, and in their little fake car, only boys have this kind of imagination. It's great. They're sliding sideways. They're squealing tires. It's got great sound. They're moving along. They decide they're going to stop for ice cream. Big treat, right? We're going to pull over and stop for ice cream. They pull over, they get stopped, and guess what? Hunter turns around and looks at Brady and says, you don't get any ice cream because you've not been good. Man, you talk about a whale. They're screaming and yelling, going on, stomping. Apparently there's a car wreck. Here comes Braden stomping. If you ever seen my grandson, you'd know he leans forward, both hands behind, and he's like a bull going somewhere. He's mad. But he's screaming and yelling, and he comes back, and he's ready for round 2. And I finally have to get involved. And it was all about the fact that he was told that he couldn't have ice cream when they stopped to get ice cream. Now, mind you, there is not a drop of ice cream in that house. All of a sudden, Peyton starts screaming. Peyton really interrupts things. Grandpa, come here. So Peyton interrupts the ice cream war that's going on in this little car that's already had a wreck, and he screams and he interrupts Hunter's authority, because until Grandpa shows up, Hunter's in charge. He's only in charge until there's a higher authority that arrives on scene. And I go, what's going on, guys? Hunter won't let me get ice cream when we stop to get ice cream. We don't have no ice cream. Yeah, but I know it's fake, but he told me I couldn't have it. Perceived authority is a dangerous thing. It really is. Let's look at a spiritual or biblical perspective of this. In Luke chapter 6, verse 6 to 11, it says, and it came to pass also on another Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and he taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered. And then the scribes and the Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. But he knew their thoughts and said to the man which had the withered hand, rise up and stand forth in the midst. So when he says that he's in the midst of a crowd. It's not just scribes and Pharisees, there's more there. Stands up in the midst, and he rose and he stood forth. Then Jesus said unto him, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it? And looking around about upon them all, he said unto the man, stretch forth thy hand. And he did so. And his hand was restored whole as the other. And they were filled with madness and communed with one another what they might do to Jesus. That story makes no sense, does it? And we have to consider a few things here. First off, it's another Sabbath. So that means it had to have happened somewhere before, right? There was one Sabbath that happened before this one at least. And it had to do with some kind of healing, because this one has to do with healing. And when you really think about it, the only Sabbath that I know of, or the only healing that I know of that took place before this, was in Luke chapter 4. In Luke chapter 4, verse 38 and 39, it says, and he rose out of the synagogue and entered into Simon's house. And Simon's wife's mother was taken with a great fever, and they besought him for her. And he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. And immediately she rose and ministered unto them. We know it's still Sabbath, because the next few verses, there's a multitude that comes to look for Jesus after the Sabbath. So Jesus heals Simon Peter's mother-in-law on that Sabbath day. But let's go back to Luke chapter 6, verse 6 through 10. When the man with the withered hand is standing there and he stands up among them, who else is there? We have the man with the withered hand. Apparently we have the scribes and the Pharisees. And then it says that Jesus knew their hearts. And now we also know, because he stood up, there's others there. But the story only points out those that are directly involved. The others had no idea what's going on. You ever been in a situation like that? You ever walk into a room and realize that you walked into the wrong room? You walk in, there's a crowd just like this one, where something's happening. You're not sure what it is, but something's happening. You're not sure what's going on. But you can just feel the room is tense. Something's about to happen. And you really wish you could just kind of walk back out of the room. We need to understand there is a crowd here. And how do you think that crowd is looking at everything that's going on in this room? You can just feel the tension. The scribes and the Pharisees are looking to entrap Jesus. And we know there's a conflict. That conflict has been building between Jesus and the scribes and the Pharisees for quite some time. So there's a conflict that has been brewing. The conflict has been driving to this moment. But there was a time and a place to take them on, and it looks like Jesus decided this was the time and this was the place. So in this room with the scribes, the Pharisees, with all the people that are in this room, Jesus first looks at them all. In other words, he takes in his audience. He looks around. Then Jesus tells the man with the withered hand, stretch forth thy hand. You know, this isn't typical of Jesus. Every time we see Jesus heal, we see Jesus says, your faith has healed you. Go and sin no more. We see him say, you're healed. Not this day. This day he simply says, stretch forth your hand. And as soon as he says that, what action did it prompt from the scribes and the Pharisees? Kill him. Does this sound familiar? Kill him. You know, they were filled with madness in the King James Version. The Greek actually says that it is anoia, which literally means they were filled with stupidity. Better translated, it is the opposite of intelligence. It's a lack of intelligence. Glad that never happens to me. Was that a little bit over the top, though? Just for healing a man's hand, is that just a little bit too much? But the reaction means that there is a story that is behind this. And we need to know the rest of the story before we can even react today. There is a conflict that is going on here in that room. You don't just arrive to the decision to kill Jesus because he wants to heal a man's hand. As Paul Harvey says, we need to know the rest of the story. So if we look closer, we see that Jesus asked this question: is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath? Let me ask you, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath? We're going to go stand outside at Phyllis's window and we're going to show our love and support for her. Who's the definer what is right and wrong in that instance? You are. Each one of you as an individual is the definer of what was right and wrong. You answered the question. You are, because you are being led by the Spirit, and the Spirit will tell you what is right and wrong. And I've learned one thing in ministry: the Spirit works through the multitude a lot better than he works through the one, because the one will mess it up. We're all human. Who was the definer of that question in Jesus' day? It was the scribes and the Pharisees. When Jesus heals the man's withered hand, it is directly against them. His question and his action just challenged their ice cream authority that they had. They are acting just like my oldest grandson, Hunter. They have ice cream authority. Do they have a reason for keeping the Sabbath? They do, yes. That's the whole reason they went into Babylonian captivity, was because they failed to keep the Sabbath. They went into captivity because they broke a relationship with God, and that broken relationship led them to break the Sabbath. We see it today all the time. But their whole perceived desire was kicking in because it was a great opportunity for them to get up and to build their giant, huge ice cream kingdom. That was it. They wanted to build their ice cream kingdom. And the scribes and the Pharisees wanted that authority just as Hunter, as the ice cream definer, had that day. They wanted that. So who really defines the Sabbath day? Nobody? God does. God does. And today we, as a corporate body, as individuals in the church being led by the Holy Spirit, we do. Let's look at this. So the authority in the church is based on who is the definer of that instance. It's real simple. Look at another point, though. Isaiah 14:12-15. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. The last time I read through Revelation, about the time you get to Revelation chapter 21, we are called to inherit all things. We are called to inherit even sitting on the throne with Jesus Christ. Amen? It confuses me. Why didn't Lucifer just ask God for everything that he wanted? Why didn't he ask God, hey, I want worship, Father. I want the kinghood. I want my own little throne over here. Can I have that? Why didn't Lucifer ask God? Yeah. Simply put, though, because if he did that, he would have to recognize that God had authority over him. Think about that for a moment. All he had to do was ask. But if he'd asked God, then he would have recognized that God had authority over him. Why do we fight in churches? Why do we have arguments? We have them all the time, by the way. Hopefully most of you are like the crowd and you just don't know they're going on. But why do we have arguments in the church? For authority. For ice cream wars. We have perceived ice cream wars in the church all the time. I've been pastoring, 14, 15 churches, and I can tell you every church has had their ice cream war. Never fails. Authority is very dangerous. And when we see Jesus was asked which law is the greatest, and Jesus says to love the Father and your neighbor as I have. You know, Jesus, he puts filters in for us. He puts the filters in so that we can interpret, so we can understand. Paul tells us that I am free from all men. The truth has set me free. But I'll tell you what, let's look beyond the walls of this church or any other church that is here. Something happened in 2013. And it was interesting to watch this take place. Anybody here watch Duck Dynasty? Okay, a couple diehard people were really quick. You guys know who the Duck team is, though, right? Millionaires that made a duck call, or they made a duck call and became millionaires. And they're about as hillbilly as you can get. They belong down in Silver Dollar City. This group in Duck Dynasty, they're very religious. In fact, they made a point to be, every time you watch the show, at the end of the show, they all sit at the dinner table and they have prayer. That's unheard of. But during a GQ interview, it talked about during the family's initial negotiation with the show on A&E, Chase told me there are 3 no compromises, and they were betrayal of family, faith, and duck season. It goes on to say that Phil calls himself a Bible thumper, and he thumps the Bible hard enough to ring the bell at the county fair test of strength contest. And if you ever watch it, you can hear plenty of non-denominational supper time prayer. There's no cussing. There's no blaspheming. It's a clean show. And we see the guy quoting scripture all the time, the old man Phil. And he tells us that God's the judge, not him. And as soon as he says that, what's the reaction? Kill him. That's exactly what happened. Kill him. They look to destroy him in any way possible. Does that sound like any situation today you see in the news? He didn't judge them. But the network moved to suspend Mr. Robinson on December the 18th in 2013 after comments were made about gay people in a magazine interview. That's how it got. And at the time, A&E described the comments, which described homosexuality acts and crude terms, and they labeled them as a sin. As extremely disappointing and not reflective of the network, which considered itself champions of the LGBTQ community. Who's the definer in that argument? Who's the definer? This is an ice cream war, guys. The lesbian and gay community is a minority here, but they want control of the situation. They want to force their belief on the whole world, and they're going to start with poor little Phil and the Duck Dynasty show. Kill him. You know, we're in serious trouble in the United States. And I believe our Salt Lake friends understand this probably better than we as normal citizens do, because we're not only are we in trouble in the United States, we're in trouble as Christians too. We live in a time when 85% of the population believes in God in one form or another. And we're beginning to see the smaller percentage force their beliefs upon the world, and the majority are becoming the condemned. It's not supposed to be that way. It's what's happening in our country, though. The great ice cream wars are causing us to lose our democratic rights as citizens of the United States. As citizens, we vote to put people in office to represent us, not to rule over us. They forget that when they get in office. The ice cream wars. The ice cream wars are shifting the perceived authority from us to our government. But where is the power supposed to be? In the people. You ever read the Declaration? It says, "We the people of the United States." It doesn't say the president. It doesn't say the Senate or the Congress or we the elected. It says, "We the people." We are no longer in control of this country because of that. But that's what's happening in our churches. What happens in our government seems to filter down into our churches, and that's not what God intended for our church. If we are not careful, individuals will lift themselves up into authority within our own church. And it's an ice cream war. It's perceived authority. It doesn't really exist. Because where's the authority in the church? With the people. Guys, I hate to tell you this. It don't lie in the pastor either. I'm the servant of all of you. I think pastors forget that. You know, if we don't do that, maybe we just find it easier. Just let somebody else make the decisions of it. Maybe it's better if somebody else does it. I get it all the time. "Hey, pastor, why don't you do this?" It's not my authority to do that. I can't appoint an elder. I can't say, "Hey, you're an elder now." That's not how that works. If you guys remember, right, you guys voted, right, Adrian? They voted you in as an elder. They nominated you on the nominating committee, and there's a voting process that happened. Pastor has very little to do with that process. But we do get lazy and we decide, hey, somebody make the decision for us. In our church manual, the church manual stresses every member ministry. Every member. Nikolai understands this, right, Nick? You guys don't know it. Nikolai's been hauling those great controversy books all over this country. And we probably should have had more prayer for him because he broke down a few times delivering them. Oleg's calling me on the phone, "Man, you got to pray." Nikolai's bringing books to us and he broke down. Every member ministry, and to have every member ministry in the church work efficiently, it takes unity. And an ice cream war will destroy unity. Trust me, those three boys that Thanksgiving Day did not talk to each other all day long. Well, not in good terms anyway. If we cannot come together in our churches and not have ice cream wars, how do we expect to be effective in God's work? We can't. There's no way we can. My favorite theologian made a great observation about 1844. It says, here we have the world looking for the coming of Jesus. They're all looking for it in 1844. We know that. They were looking. You look on the internet, they were waiting for the Lord to show up and they were going to be taken away. They had figured it out. So here they are. And she is talking about 1844. They know in their hearts that their time is short here on earth, and their focus is Christ's advent. And she says, I remember when we were looking for the Savior to come in 1844, how great was the anxiety of each to know that his own heart was right before God. When we would meet together, the question would be asked by one another, brethren, have you seen anything in me that may not be right? I know that we are often blind to our own faults. And if you have seen anything wrong in me, I want you to tell me. Sometimes errors would be pointed out, and we would all bow before God and seek forgiveness. If any variance or alienation existed, we felt that we could not even separate until we were all in harmony. And sometimes brethren who had difficulty would be seen going away together to some secret place to plead with God, and they would return with their hearts knit together in love. The sweet spirit of peace was in our assemblies, and the glory of God was around us. The faces of the believers shone with the light of heaven. That's Historical Sketches, page 213. I got a simple question today. Where's your heart today? We have a great Advent right in front of us, do we not? And if we don't put aside our ice cream wars that happen in the church at whatever level we're at, whether it's in the Sabbath school or in the church itself or even in the conference or the union or the division, we're in big trouble. We're not going to be ready. If there's been an ice cream war in your life, probably need to go fix that. Maybe you're not sure. Then we need to ask, brethren, have you seen anything in me that is not right? Can you imagine? Could you imagine if today is our last Sabbath together? Could you imagine that a Wednesday, Jesus is coming? How would your attitude be today? If Jesus was coming on Wednesday, what would you be doing right now to get ready for Jesus Christ? Your life would be much different, wouldn't it? The real question is, why are you not doing it right now? Why not right now? You know, I'm glad my grandsons grew up a little bit. They did outgrow the boxes that day. They did get past the great ice cream war. They had lots of other ice cream wars. And I hope over time they've realized they're all for nothing. Because the real definer of all things is God the Father, amen? We all come to God at the foot of the cross. Nobody kneels at the foot of the cross any different than the next. So we're all equal in the eyes of the Lord. No reason to have an ice cream war, is there? We should remember that. Please stand with me today.